When a new graphics card arrives, the first question is always the same: how much better is it compared to the previous generation? Numbers, benchmarks, frame rates, these are the figures that gamers, creators, and professionals want to see. But to truly understand why the RTX 50 series matters, we have to look deeper than simple percentages. This series is not just about brute force performance. It is about a change in design philosophy. NVIDIA did not simply raise clock speeds or add more cores. Instead, they restructured how the GPU itself works. That difference is what makes this generation stand apart. At the heart of the RTX 50 series is a brand new architecture. New ray tracing cores. New tensor cores. Smarter ways of balancing workloads. This means the GPU doesn't just run faster, it runs smarter. Every watt of power is used more effectively. Every calculation is done with greater efficiency. When you look at the card under load, you see that it runs cooler than the previous generation even though it delivers more raw performance. That is not a coincidence. It is a reflection of engineering decisions that prioritize efficiency as much as speed. Ray tracing has always been NVIDIA's crown jewel. When it was first introduced, it felt like a glimpse into the future. Beautiful lighting, realistic shadows, and reflections that responded naturally to the environment. But in those early days, few GPUs could handle it smoothly. Games stuttered, frame rates collapsed, and many players turned it off just to keep things playable. With every generation, NVIDIA improved. But with the RTX 50 series, the story changes. Ray tracing is no longer a novelty. It is no longer an experimental feature. It feels native. Natural. You can switch it on and still hold frame rates that stay above 100 in optimized titles. Path-traced lighting, shadows, reflections, all of it working in real time without turning your system into a slideshow. That shift is critical. Because once ray tracing becomes the default, game developers stop treating it as optional. They design worlds around it. They lean into its strengths. They build environments that feel alive because the hardware can finally support it at scale. What once looked like a technical showcase now looks like everyday gameplay. The RTX 50 series is the bridge that turns ray tracing from a dream into a standard. But NVIDIA did not stop there. Tensor cores, the AI-powered engines inside every RTX card, have also been reworked. These are the cores responsible for DLSS, deep learning supersampling. Over the years, DLSS has evolved from a clever trick into a critical part of modern gaming. It allows games to render at a lower resolution, then use AI to upscale the image to a higher resolution with incredible clarity. In the RTX 50 series, these tensor cores run more advanced AI models. They sharpen edges with precision. They smooth out motion in ways that feel almost invisible. Even fast-moving objects retain their detail without smearing or blur. The result is an experience where you no longer have to choose between visuals and performance. You get both. If you own an RTX 4090, you might ask, how much better can things really get? After all, the 4090 was already a monster. The answer is not just about raw frame rates. It is about consistency. The 40 series delivered huge power, but at the cost of high energy draw and high thermals. The RTX 50 series delivers equal or greater performance with more stability. Frame times are smoother. Workloads are distributed more intelligently. The card spends less time spiking in temperature and more time holding steady. In practice, that means your games feel better, not just faster. And when you compare NVIDIA to rivals, the differences stand out even more. AMD has made strong progress in rasterization, the traditional way of drawing graphics. But when it comes to AI and ray tracing, NVIDIA continues to lead. DLSS remains unmatched in quality. In professional workloads, NVIDIA's CUDA ecosystem is still the standard across industries. From 3D rendering to video editing, from AI research to content creation, NVIDIA offers tools and support that others cannot match. The RTX 50 series does not just improve gaming. It reinforces NVIDIA's position as the backbone of modern GPU computing. Benchmarks tell the story in numbers. Imagine a game like Cyberpunk 2077. On the RTX 40 series, you might lower resolution or disable ray tracing to keep the frame rate stable. On the RTX 50 series, you run it at full 4K, with every setting enabled, and still see triple-digit frame rates. That is not a small step. That is a leap. Multiply that across the growing library of modern games, and suddenly the compromises of the past disappear. You do not choose between visuals and speed anymore. You get both as the default. This also shapes the future of gaming. Developers design their titles around the hardware they expect players to own. When the RTX 50 series becomes common, developers will push boundaries further. Larger open worlds. More realistic physics. AI-driven characters that interact with players naturally. These are not futuristic concepts anymore. They are ideas waiting for the right hardware. And that hardware has arrived. But power is not everything. Many gamers worry about efficiency. Big GPUs often feel like heaters inside a PC case, drawing enormous amounts of energy. NVIDIA has addressed this directly. The RTX 50 series delivers more performance per watt than the 40 series. That means less energy wasted, less heat generated, and quieter systems overall. Yes, you still need a solid power supply, but the balance of input to output is better than ever. The card uses energy more wisely. And when less heat is generated, fans spin slower. The whole system becomes quieter, more stable, and more pleasant to use. Of course, performance like this comes at a price. NVIDIA has not officially announced pricing yet, but expectations are high. Entry-level cards in the RTX 50 lineup will likely land in the mid-range market. The flagship models may push past $1,500 or more. For some, that is intimidating. But context matters. This is not just a gaming GPU. For many, it replaces a console, a streaming device, and even a professional workstation. When you compare the cost of multiple separate devices, the value becomes clear. Who is this card for? If you play indie games at 1080p, you do not need this level of power. But if you are serious about gaming, if you want AAA titles at 4K, if you want the smoothest ray tracing, or if you rely on GPU acceleration for your creative work, then this card is designed for you. It is not about showing off. It is about unlocking the full potential of the software you use every day. The future of PC gaming is about immersion. Worlds that feel alive. Physics that respond naturally. Characters powered by AI who adapt to your actions. None of this is possible without raw GPU power. The RTX 50 series is the platform that makes this possible. NVIDIA is not just selling you frame rates. It is selling you confidence. Confidence that your system will be ready for the next wave of technology. Confidence that you will not have to compromise. Confidence that the future of gaming is already in your hands. So is the RTX 50 series worth it? If you want the best, the answer is simple, yes. It is faster. It is smarter. It is more efficient. It changes not just how games look, but how they feel. It reduces wait times for creators. It extends the life of your PC for years. It costs more, but it delivers more. And in the end, that is what matters. This is not just another GPU release. This is the foundation for the next era of PC gaming. And for those ready to step into that era, the RTX 50 series is here. When you hear about a new generation of graphics cards, it is easy to get lost in technical jargon. Ray tracing cores. Tensor cores. New architectures. These terms matter, but at the end of the day, what most people really want to know is simple: how does it feel in practice? How does this card perform in the games you play, in the software you use, and in the daily experience of owning a high-end PC? The RTX 50 series answers those questions with clarity. Let us begin with benchmarks, because numbers help illustrate the scale of change. Imagine a game like Cyberpunk 2077, one of the most demanding titles ever made. On the RTX 40 series, you could run it well, but you had to make choices. Lower the ray tracing quality. Drop the resolution. Maybe enable DLSS to keep the frame rate stable. With the RTX 50 series, those compromises vanish. You can run the game at native 4K, every setting maxed, full path traced lighting enabled, and still stay above 100 frames per second. That is not an incremental step. It is a new standard. Now, extend that to other modern games. In titles like Red Dead Redemption 2, you see smooth 4K at ultra settings with headroom to spare. In competitive games like Valorant or Apex Legends, frame rates soar far beyond the limits of most monitors. Even at 1440p or 4K with ray tracing enabled, the card delivers such high consistency that input latency drops to nearly invisible levels. For esports players, that kind of responsiveness is more important than raw graphics. And the RTX 50 series delivers both. But the benefits go beyond gaming. Consider professional workloads. Video editors working in 8K. 3D artists rendering complex environments. AI researchers training models that require billions of calculations. These are tasks where time equals money. Waiting an extra hour for a render means lost productivity. The RTX 50 series cuts those wait times dramatically. With its upgraded CUDA cores and tensor cores, the card accelerates creative software to levels that once required entire workstation setups. For many creators, this card is not just an upgrade. It is a revolution in workflow. NVIDIA's CUDA ecosystem makes the difference here. Over years of development, NVIDIA has built a foundation that professionals rely on. Whether it is Adobe Premiere, Blender, DaVinci Resolve, or proprietary AI frameworks, NVIDIA cards are the gold standard. AMD and Intel offer alternatives, but their ecosystems lack the same breadth of support. That is why for creative professionals, the RTX 50 series is more than a gaming card. It is a tool that saves hours, reduces frustration, and opens new creative possibilities. Of course, no conversation about GPUs is complete without addressing power and heat. The RTX 4090 was infamous for its energy draw and thermal output. It required large cases, strong cooling, and hefty power supplies. The RTX 50 series changes the equation. By improving performance per watt, NVIDIA has created a card that delivers more while consuming less. That does not mean it is lightweight. It still demands robust hardware, but it feels more balanced. Instead of acting like a space heater inside your system, it distributes its load more intelligently. Less wasted power. Less noise from fans spinning at maximum speed. For gamers, that means longer sessions with fewer distractions. For creators, it means reliable performance without thermal throttling. Another key aspect is stability. Smooth frame times. Consistent workloads. These may sound like small things, but they shape the entire experience. The RTX 4090 was powerful, but it often spiked under pressure. The RTX 50 series feels steadier. Frame pacing in games is tighter. Render times in software are more predictable. This kind of reliability is what separates a good GPU from a great one. It is not just about how fast it can go, but how smoothly it can maintain that speed. Let us also look at competition. AMD's GPUs have grown stronger in rasterization, sometimes even outperforming NVIDIA in raw traditional rendering. But NVIDIA's advantage lies in the features that matter most for the future: ray tracing and AI. DLSS continues to outperform AMD's FSR in both image quality and consistency. AI-enhanced motion smoothing, edge sharpening, and resolution scaling make a visible difference. And when you step into professional software, the CUDA ecosystem leaves rivals far behind. For many buyers, that difference is decisive. Now, pricing. NVIDIA has not released official figures yet, but history gives us clues. Entry-level RTX 50 cards will likely sit in the mid-range, making them accessible to a broad audience. Flagship models, however, may cross $1,500 or more. For some, that price feels overwhelming. But it is worth remembering what this card replaces. For gamers, it eliminates the need for a console. For creators, it removes the need for multiple specialized workstations. In many cases, the RTX 50 series becomes the single most important piece of hardware in your setup. Measured against that value, the price becomes easier to justify. So who should upgrade? Not everyone. If you play indie games at 1080p, you do not need this much power. The RTX 3060 or 4060 is more than enough for you. But if you are a gamer chasing 4K at ultra settings, if you want the best ray tracing, if you are a creator working with demanding tools, or if you are an enthusiast who wants a system ready for the next 5 years, the RTX 50 series is the card to buy. It is not about bragging rights. It is about unlocking the full potential of the games and tools you love. Looking ahead, the impact of this generation will be huge. Developers design games around the hardware available. When GPUs like the RTX 50 series are common, they will create larger, denser worlds. They will build AI-driven NPCs that interact naturally with players. They will simulate realistic physics, lighting, and environments in ways that were impossible before. Buying this card is not just about playing today's games. It is about preparing for the next wave of titles that assume you own this kind of power. And this is not limited to gaming. AI research, simulation, medical imaging, scientific modeling, these fields all benefit from GPU acceleration. As GPUs become more powerful and efficient, breakthroughs in these areas accelerate. The RTX 50 series is not just about entertainment. It is about pushing forward the limits of what computers can achieve. In the end, the RTX 50 series represents a simple but powerful truth. Progress in graphics cards is no longer just about higher frame rates. It is about smarter use of power. It is about AI enhancing every frame, every calculation, every render. It is about stability and reliability as much as speed. And it is about shaping the future of the industries that rely on these tools. Yes, it is expensive. Yes, it requires strong supporting hardware. But it delivers on every promise. Faster. Smarter. More efficient. More stable. A card that changes not only how games look, but how they feel. A card that makes creative work faster and more enjoyable. A card that sets the stage for the next era of technology. So when people ask, is the RTX 50 series worth it? The answer is clear. If you want the best, if you want to be ready for the future, if you want to experience games and creative tools without compromise, then yes. The RTX 50 series is waiting.